As the UK has left the European Union and we're in a transition period, the hard bargaining is about to get started. And I suppose the elephant in the room for many people is, can there be a deal on services? Now, globally, services account for 67% of the economic output of developed countries and for between 20 and 25% of all international trade. Services is estimated to take up 70% of the EU's economic output. And in 2015, the UK was the second largest exporter of services in the world, providing 7.1% of total global services exports. The USA is the leading provider at 15.6%. Now, services account for 75% of the UK's economic output and 44% of its international trade. Tradable services continue to grow and in fact are the fastest growing element of UK trade. About 37% of EU service exports go to the EU compared to 48% for goods. The EU is the UK's largest market for services and it's worth 70% more than its nearest rival, the USA, and worth more than the total of the 8 next biggest customers combined. The UK has a surplus with the EU in services, but not in goods. Overall, UK service exports in the EU represent about 4.8% of UK GDP. The UK is the largest provider of financial services to the EU at 25%. Those financial services earn between 217 and 234 billion in revenue every year, and between 68 and 76 billion in taxes. And despite all of that, the majority of services, 72% in fact, exported from the UK are not financial services. The services that mostly Britain exports are telecommunications, broadcasting, tourism and aviation, as well as professional services such as accountancy and law. In 2015, those exports had a total value of 62.9 billion compared to financial services worth a mere 26 billion. Non-financial services are also responsible for more exports than financial services and also provide more jobs. For example, aircraft engine manufacturers such as Rolls-Royce often sell their aero engines at a loss, and the profits instead are made on the sale of services such as inspections, maintenance and repairs. And many of these contracts will last for decades. Now, in order to provide those services, you need freedom of movement for people to provide them. And those services often have to be provided at short notice. And it also needs mutual recognition of the qualifications and standards. So, for example, if an airline engine goes down in Dublin Airport for Ryanair and Rolls-Royce come across, they have to have the freedom to come and work here, send their expert over, and then once they certify that the engine is in fact now safe to fly, the qualification that the engineer has got, if it's a UK qualification, it may not be recognised at all. This is significant. And as a third country, the EU cannot offer the same deal to the UK as it had as a member. They want their cake and eat it, but we know that they can't have it. So we think the UK will find out that the deeper liberalisation of services is a much tougher ask and much more difficult to achieve than anything done on tariffs. And we feel that it's always easier within a bloc than outside it.